All right, so we'll give this movement a minute or two, but I'm going to let you know about Dr. Robert Pace. So he's an associate professor at the University of Waterloo, and he was a steering committee member for the Green Resilience Project. So the Green Resilience Project was kind of a marriage between climate justice and basic income. So it'll be very interesting to hear from him about that. His presence here today did help inspire our climate justice basic income signs, as did the climate march that's taking part today. So, welcome, Dr. Pace.
Thank you, Chelsea. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Is it worth doing this? You want to talk about climate change for a minute? The thing about climate change is, it's often, sometimes I call myself an environmental activist, but I'm not sure that the causes that I'm into are really environmental in nature. Is climate change an environmental issue, really? Isn't it bigger than that? Doesn't it affect us all? Will environmental policy on its own fix climate change? I don't think it will. Climate change is an issue not just because it threatens the environment around us and other species. It's not even only an issue because ultimately it threatens our survival on this planet. I think it's an issue because right now it's causing dislocation and destruction around the world. It exacerbates conflict and social inequality because it's basically a concrete manifestation of social injustice as we know it. So-called environmental issues obviously do impact the non-human environment, but they affect us too, and more importantly, we create them, don't we? We create environmental problems, either directly through our behaviors, and probably more broadly through the social, political, and economic institutions that humans have built, through which we dominate each other and we dominate the environment. This is what's got to change. Climate change is not, I believe, it's not a natural or inevitable side effect of the existence of humans on this planet. It's about how we organize ourselves. It's not population size that's killing us. There's plenty of evidence to show that there's still lots of space on Earth and there's still lots of calories to go around. It's about how we distribute those resources. What's killing the planet, I believe, is this trajectory that we're on, where rather than taking what we need from the planet and distributing it as efficiently as possible towards the goal of long-term collective well-being, instead of that, we take as much as there's an appetite for, or as much as we can create an appetite for, and use it for the primary purpose of profit maximization and private accumulation. It's a highly socially inefficient and environmentally inefficient way to do things. So we need to do things differently. I think this is where basic income starts to come in, is it not? Basic income obviously won't solve the problem of accumulation and all the problems of the consumption. It's not going to be enough on its own to stop climate change, but what single policy actually is. I think it is an important part of the puzzle, though, is it not? So I was asked to speak today, at least in part because I was a steering committee member of a project we call the Green Resilience Project. Sheila Reguera is here. She's also a co-steering member. And this project spent the last year working through partners at a community level, convening a series of conversations with 33 diverse communities all across Canada, bringing together people from different parts of the community, from labor, from environment, from social justice networks, Indigenous peoples, others, and brought together to hear what they think, how they think climate change and climate change adaptation will affect their individual and their collective well-being, and what they think needs to be done to make their communities more resilient in this context. Are you still with me so far? Okay. So listening to Canadians, well, how is climate change going to affect them, what they think needs to happen next. And you can find the full report on our website at greenresilience.ca, one word, greenresilience.ca. The conversations obviously highlighted all kinds of different climate-related challenges. This is 33 different communities across Canada, particularly impacts being faced by Indigenous people, low-income communities, other marginalized communities. And the conversations also uncovered all kinds of interesting solutions that we might try. But overall, people's comments coalesced around 4 main themes. And I think these are interesting from a basic income kind of point of view. First, people are concerned about the impacts of climate change itself and on measures to mitigate climate change. They're concerned about the impacts of that on their livelihoods and their income. They need some income security through this transition. Secondly, despite these reservations and the challenges facing them, overwhelmingly, people who are involved in these conversations said that they want to make their communities more resilient and that they are ready now to adopt new, bold, and progressive policy ideas. Income security is an issue, and they're ready to try something new. People across Canada, number 3, particularly those experiencing income insecurity and other forms of precarity, feel the impacts of climate change every day, but they find themselves unable to participate in the solutions as they'd like to because of structural barriers that prevent them from doing so, such as, again, income security and poverty. We need something to mitigate this problem. And the 4th point that they came to is communities are ready to take action, but they're mindful of the limited ability to make change at the scale and the pace necessary to solve this problem of climate change. And they call on government now to respond to this challenge with transformative new policy approaches that address root causes of climate change and of income security. And so out of this, of course, the project was left with little room to do other than recommend a basic income as part of the project results. That's one thing. But to start, we can anticipate that as climate change advances, more and more Canadians will experience disruptions to their livelihoods, whether that be through climate events like droughts and floods and fires or severe storms. That's going to happen more and more. Or through the demise of traditional industries, the demise of traditional agricultural crops or food sources. Food sources? Pardon me? In the context of resource exhaustion, incursions of new pest species, collapse, other forms of ecological decline, food prices are rising, supply chain issues will continue. So that to me sounds like kind of a ecological rationale for something like a basic income. Evelyn Forget, I heard her speak at a panel a few months ago. She called it an automatic stabilizer. Basic income is an automatic stabilizer in times of uncertainty and insecurity. It's like an insurance plan against all these changes, these disruptions in livelihoods. So indeed, a basic income may be part of the solution there. But thinking proactively too, if we want to make the changes that are needed in our economy to get from what we have now to a less fossil fuel dependent economy, it's going to cause disruption. It's going to cause job losses. Even as new jobs are created in another sector, it's going to interrupt people's incomes. And the fear of it is going to get in the way of people getting actively involved in making the solutions unless we have something to carry people through those precarious periods. So in order to make a transition to a cleaner climate, a cleaner economy, we're going to need something like a basic income to carry people through. And going a step further, if it's possible to imagine an economy not dependent on fossil fuels, a zero emissions economy, a zero growth economy, we're going to have to figure out a way to share resources efficiently. Take only what's needed from the earth and share them efficiently towards the common good. And I think a basic income could be part of that movement. A few more words here. Simon Birnbaum wrote about basic income going back 10 years at least, and has written that one of the great promises of the basic income is its ability to sever our dependence on ecologically harmful growth engines. Don't you love that? Basic income, one of the greatest promises is its ability to sever our dependence on ecologically harmful economic engines. Certainly the people we talked to in the Green Resilience Project told us that they would do more to shift towards this net zero lifestyle and net zero incomes if they were guaranteed a little more security in their basic incomes. Supported by a basic income, you can imagine small-scale independent farms, for example, become more viable against the exponential pressure that they face right now to sell out to developers, to the big aggregate business, to the highway builders, or to the corporate factory farms that do so much ecological and social damage. A basic income, as you know, increases the viability of staying at home, even with marginal employment, and contributing to your local community, building up your local economy for the long-term resilience, rather than picking up and moving to Fort McMurray and look in search of a livelihood. It gives people more choices. Did we hear that already? More choices, more freedom to engage in creative ventures, local politics, and even in climate action itself. So I know that an environmental pitch for a basic income is not going to impress our current conservative provincial government. As far as I can tell, they could care less about the environment. They're more inclined to make sure corporations are profitable and investors get a high return on their investment. But I do think that there's considerable potential here for finding common cause with the environmental movement. I think there's considerable potential here for finding common cause. I see your signs out there. For finding common cause with climate activists and for broadening the breadth of constituencies and voters who can get behind this idea in a really active way. So, in conclusion, basic income, I think, reflects the idea of sharing wealth efficiently, the wealth derived from the earth, in opposition to the grotesque inefficiency of accumulation. Billionaires accumulating wealth and blasting off into space. Really, who needs that? Basic income reflects a collective commitment to long-term individual and collective well-being. And the basic income affirms a demand from below for a continued direct role of government in supporting and promoting social welfare against the neoliberal drive for the deregulation and the unrestrained capital accumulation that leads to both human exploitation and planetary destruction. Again, basic income is not going to be enough to solve the climate crisis on its own. We'll still need strong public services and other public policy to go along with it. But as a pillar, an important pillar in forward-looking, ecologically oriented social policy framework, basic income, I would say, might just be the kind of investment we need for all the reasons you know, and maybe investment also for the future of our planet. So let's get out there and demand it, make basic income a climate action. Thank you.